reshaping and pivot. Hello everyone, and welcome to the section on reshaping and pivoting tables. In this section we'll look at pivoting data frames, and we'll see how we can reshape data frames by using the stack and unstack methods. This is the Pandas documentation on reshaping and pivoting tables. They have various examples and elaborate explanation on reshaping and pivoting tables. So you can read more about it and see the details of specific methods and examples in here. We'll also see some examples from here, but this is a good explanation and documentation for reshaping. So feel free to explore more of the methods in the documentation here. Thank you everyone. Hello everyone, and welcome. In this lecture we'll learn about pivoting data frames. As usual, we start by importing Pandas as PD and import NumPy as NP, and from Pandas import series and data frames. For this lecture we'll look at the example on pivot tables on the Pandas documentation. So we'll look at this example, which I have here. So don't worry about how this is made. So this is used to create a data frame. Let's check our data frame. So here we have our data frame with 3 columns: date, variable, and values column, and we have our indexes from 0 through 11. So if I go back to the documentation, let's say here it says that we wish to do some time series operations with the variables, and a better representation would be where the columns are unique values and the index of the dates identifies individual observations. So to accomplish this, we'll be using the pivot function. Okay, here it's our data frame, and a little elaboration on the pivot function. It takes 3 arguments. It takes index, columns, and values as an argument. As a value for each of the parameters, we need to specify a column name in the original table. So we have column name in the original table. The pivot function will create a new table with row and column indexes. So we'll see that once we use the pivot function, we'll have a new table with row and column indexes, and those row and column indexes are the unique values of the respective parameters, and the cell values are taken from the column given as the values parameter. In our example here, what we'll do is we'll use the pivot function, and we'll use the date column as our index, and the columns we'll use the variable column as our new column name, so that we can do some time operations using this date column, and this values column will serve as individual value or observations for each of the specific dates. Okay, let's see how we can reshape our data frame using the pivot function. So we have our data frame object, which is this data frame, and then we call the pivot function on it. And as I said earlier, the pivot function accepts 3 arguments: columns, values, and index. Let's pass those. So for index, we'll set it to be the date column, and our columns argument will take the variable column from the original data frame, and for the values argument, we'll set it to be equal to the value from our original data frame. If we run it now, you see here, now the data frame is reshaped in a way that we can do individual time observation. We have our variables here, A, B, C, D, and we have the date column here, and we have, in each cell we have values for each of the time series. So this is how we can use the pivot function. Okay, this is a general introduction. For more examples, you can look at the documentation here. I'll leave the link. So there are some few more examples in the documentation. Go through it and then refer to it for more elaboration. But this is an introduction to the pivot function. Great, thank you everyone, and see you at the next lecture.